So our next event for the day is an interesting fireside chat with Mr. Viraj Tyagi, who is CEO eGovernment Foundation. This session is going to be an insightful discussion between Mr. Tathagat Varma, VP Walmart, and Mr. Tyagi, where they both will focus on e-government mission and vision, technology's contribution to this mission, role of product management and product managers, and what are the future initiatives of e-government and some of the related topics. So we welcome Mr. Tathagat Varma and Mr. Tyagi.
But Viraj Tyagi is the CEO of eGovernment Foundation. He's passionate about the impact of Jugalbandi of digital public goods. I'm going to ask you what is digital public goods. I think that's a term that's very new for all of us. Policies and ecosystems in solving complex societal problems at scale and speed. Before joining the impact sector, Viraj was an entrepreneur and corporate leader with a wide-ranging experience in building large businesses in Europe and India. He's a serial entrepreneur, an active investor in startups, and a mentor to entrepreneurs. Viraj was the CEO and co-founder of Net Positive, one of the first big data and analytics companies in India, and he's also a co-founder of the fintech startup Finable. He's on the board of several startups and companies. He's an alum of IIM Bangalore and IIT BHU. Welcome, Viraj. And to set the ball rolling, I would love to, if you can help our audience understand a little more about e-government or e-governance, and what is it about? Is it a government body? Is it a non-government body? I think the term seems to indicate that there is a governance in that. So if you can unpack it for us.
So, thanks for that. Fantastic to be here in such a great company and a great initiative. First of all, we are not a government body. We are called eGov Foundation. I'm trying to rebrand it so that we don't get confused with government. We are a foundation, but we are actually a startup. A GovTech startup is the best way to define it. We are funded by philanthropic money, and our ROI is measured by how many citizens get benefit from what we do. So I don't know how many of you have a COVID vaccination certificate. Hands up. Oh, okay. So I think the vaccine, there's a verified credentialing system, kind of a building block, which is part of COVID, which was built by us. It's called DIVOC, which is the opposite of COVID. And it's a population scale infra. At the peak when we were doing 5-6 million vaccinations a day, no problem. It generates the verified credential, which can be checked against a specific app and make sure there's no fraud. And not just India, 4 more countries across the globe used it. So that's the so we are a startup. We work for making sure people get transparent, equitable, easy to access services. Those words are very important. And essentially the idea is that I worked in private sector for 23 years, did my own startups. I think solving problems is not hard, because people understand problems easily. If I was in American Express, I had to get a new card system for that. I could spec it easily. There's a market out there. I can evaluate the vendors. I don't have to go to the lowest price vendor if I didn't need to. I had capacity in my team to execute it. And 2 years later, after some pain and everything, you'll have a new infra running. Guess what is the cost of failure of technology transformation initiatives in the government sector? Any guesses? Failure rate.
Failure rate, so...
Or success rate, whatever, one minus that, 14% success rate, 14%. And that is because of the way some of the things are set up. Governments, especially in low and middle income countries like India, they don't have capacity to actually understand what role technology can play. They have some sense. They know what the problems are, but really appreciation of what kind of technology is needed, how to spec it, even to how to write an RFP if it needs to be done, that's hard. Second, the way policies are set up, even if you know what you want, you may not be able to procure it. Okay. Thirdly, the whole the market around governance services is very small market. So you don't have enough competition. So essentially, it's almost like a case of a market failure, that the buyer doesn't know, what he or she wants. Buyer doesn't know what good looks like. Even if you get something, buyer doesn't have capacity to execute it, right? So I think the role organization like ours plays to actually, I always say, the governments don't have capacity to solve it, and the private sector doesn't have incentive to solve it. Why would I build a digital platform which is open source, anybody can come and build on it, and not think about my profit, which is fair, right? And there are participation barriers for markets to participate, even if they want to participate, right? So I think when you talk about digital public goods, it basically means, can you create public infrastructure, digital infrastructure or public goods, which are foundational in nature? Aadhaar is a great example of a DPG, right? Because Aadhaar basically is what? It's a registry for your identity, right? It says you are who you are.
Yeah.
Now you can build a KYC engine on that. You can build a UPI on that. You can build government to people payments on that, right? Those are applications people can build on top of it. So I think the idea is to build for the society, right, infrastructures which can help society work in an easier manner. So example being, I need to get a license for operating my shop, right? Today, 5 years ago, you'll have to go to 14 different departments, Department of Electricity, get clearance for them, then you have to go and submit the fee somewhere. And then we've all gone through those experiences. Some of you may have not. I have definitely gone through that. And the idea is, can you create open source, population scale infrastructure, software infrastructure, with open APIs, interoperable interfaces, and reliable registries on which other people can come and build.
Gotcha.
So you're taking some of the barriers out for the government, you're taking some of the barriers of participation out from the market, and of course you're exemplifying some of the use cases. So we do build applications. We have got 8 or 9 applications we have built, okay? But most of our effort is spent in building the platform we call DIGIT, which stands for Digital Infra for Governance and Inclusive Transformation, right? So that is the basic idea, that can you create a non-competing, free to use, easily available infrastructure for people to build on.
So it's a very interesting play that you are saying, that there is a white space, clearly, for all the right reasons, because obviously in a large country like ours, where we do have, it's not like we have no dearth of resources.
Yeah.
We have limited resources. We have to find the right way of doing it, and maybe there is not enough incentives available for a lot of private players. So you are filling in that space there. Do you see yourself really more of a kind of a open platforms, or are you seeing yourself more from an ecosystem point of view? The reason I'm saying is, with all due regards, I think great job with the DevOps APIs. Is that the right way to look at it?
No, it's an API plus software.
It's an API plus software, right?
Workflows.
So 2 billion certificates issued there in 5 countries. It doesn't get any better than that. But think about it this way. Maybe there is another entity that gets stood up tomorrow, and they also start doing it. And then everybody in the name of open platform is kind of doing it, because the ecosystem, everything else equal, might require multiple players who are kind of collaborating with each other there. So am I right in saying, in kind of looking at it and saying that it seems like a more of an open platform which is available today, but tomorrow maybe there are better ways of doing it, and so be it, right? Is that what you're looking at?
Absolutely. I think, and this is a very important point, this is not about software. This is about, creating standards and specs that anybody can use.
Yes.
Because the problems are, somebody was talking about India, 100 languages, and 14 different official languages, right? Asansol is very different from Ahmedabad, right? So unless you have diverse solutions being built in a context, right, you can never solve problems at scale, right? So I think our approach, so we are very clear. We are not in the business of flogging an open source platform, okay? We are in the business of saying, if you build a minimalist platform which has the right layers of registries, common services, and data exchange. Those are 3 things you need to build a platform, right? And that could be applied to various contexts of service delivery, whether you want your vaccine campaign, you need your medicines to be delivered, you need your water connection, you want to raise a complaint about what's happening in municipality, you want to get your septic tank cleaned, right? And if more people build on it, that's better,
Okay.
right? Because we have a very clear model. We don't charge anybody single paisa for what we do. Okay, we've got, Professor Sadgopan has been our, managing trustee for decades now, right? And he knows our journey. And 6 years ago, we took a call that if we can't be poacher and the gamekeeper. We can't build an open platform and say we'll participate in RFP also as an implementation partner.
Right.
So 6 years ago, we took a call that we'll raise risk capital, and we're lucky to have, backers like Nandan Nilekani, Omidyar Network, Tata Trust, and Gates Foundation. And we're clear that if you unlock the network to build on top of it, that's
Right.
when you can solve it.
Okay.
So in a way, we look at ourselves as an ecosystem player. We look at ourselves as a network creator. So today, 30% of our energy is spent on enabling the network, whether it's creating new use cases. So we build 9 applications. In India itself, 42 different applications built by a small company like Interlace in Tamil Nadu to
So you're looking at really creating some kind of open systems and then look at a downstream consumption and look for a set of partners. So not in a negative way, but in a positive way, it's like a walled garden approach. You have fixed set of APIs. Tomorrow there might be a competing set of API architecture available there. That's not something that you are either stopping, but then from an ecosystem point of view, I was trying to understand what would be your sense of a trust factor coming in. Tomorrow there might be somebody who might say, I would like to do that, but it's a pre-standards kind of a thing. Like for example, how the electronic health records have to be generated. Maybe there is tomorrow another better way of doing it. How would you look at that?
We would
kind
welcome,
of a thing?
this competition that's even better, because I really believe the GovTech space is scarce right now.
Okay. So it's
Right.
too new at this point in time, and
No,
nobody
it's old, but I think
mean-
the traditional models have not worked,
Got it.
right? So there's APIs, and they're open APIs, and we have a governance council. It's not that we define what the APIs are. We have a governance council who looks at there's a tech council, which are people who market from government, from civil society. So governance is very important. Who are we to decide how somebody should pay water bill?
Fair
right?
point.
Right? And wherever there are existing building blocks available, whether they're built in India or whether built overseas, we'll use those. Yeah.
So I have one question, and because it's very close to our hearts, in the last 2 years we have seen the pain and suffering from COVID. Can you rewind the tape for us, and how was it to develop the DevOps API and the software? What were some of the product considerations? Because the whole issue was unraveling in real time. So
Yeah.
you don't really have a frozen kind of a problem. So you don't know what will happen tomorrow, and then there are new set of things there.
Yeah.
If you can play that journey for us.
No, COVID was a very, I would say, responsibility kind of experience for us. In fact, the first COVID experience for us was when the lockdown happened in March 2020, right? And suddenly the people who were giving essential services were not able to move around, right? And we had those images on the TV that people are getting beaten up and everything. So we got people from Unilever, P&G, from Ministry of Food, some volunteers from Bangalore, and using the building blocks, the common services of Digit, you have to build a national e-pass in 5 days. So it
5
was
days?
5 days, yeah,
Wow.
for the essential service worker, not for the citizens.
Yeah.
So basically, they were a bulk pass issuance for, I've got a factory, I can issue a bulk pass, and more than 7 states and more than 10 million journeys were.
And that
done
was
on-
not an active project at that
It
point.
was
in
not.
time.
It was just people came
Like-
together. That's the power of open networks, right? People come together with trust, right? Because nobody has a vested interest in that, right? DIVOC was again, when we looked at what's happening in countries, it was clear that unless vaccination happens and people have a reliable way of showing they've been vaccinated, there'll be no free movement. That was the basic premise, right? And again, our thought process was if there are existing systems, ComCare, DHIS2, there's no point trying to rebuild those. Okay. The idea was what is the scarcity in the system? And the scarcity was a very trustworthy way of verifying that this certificate indeed belongs to me. It's not like one of those blood tests all of us, people used to do and say, this is my blood test, right? So we basically, the consideration is very simple, that it should be easy to integrate and coexist with existing systems. So it should not disrupt what is already there. Second was, it should be able to work at population scale. And third is, it should be able to work across multiple countries. So we work with WHO. There's a WCCD standard for vaccine certificates. And we were part of the committee, again, there, to kind of put that standard out. So standards are very important when you want interoperability, right? So idea was that if your certificate is issued in India, it should be valid in Japan, it should be valid in Hong Kong and stuff like that. So I think the two things there was using a population scale infrastructure, so all those good things, Kafka queues and all those kind of things were used for that. And second thing was really looking at standards as a important part of interoperability. And if somebody else wants to build, so be it. So Jamaica build their own on top of it, which is great.
Okay.
Yeah. Ethiopia build their own.
So clearly that's a very strong technology play as well, right? You're talking about Kafka and other infrastructure there.
Yeah, it's free, it's not cheap.
No, I think, I mean, the one thing I've always been interested, like we are a nation of more than 1 billion smartphone users, or at least the feature phone and smartphone users there. One of the challenges that we always see is like a typical, let's say $100 phone or less than that can only have enough RAM to have 4 or 5 of big apps, and we all know what are those apps going to be. A lot of entertainment and other ones there. How do you really make sure that you are able to create it on a footprint that can reach to the poorest of the poor? Because that's really the biggest challenge where it can fail, right? To me, that's the single biggest failure point.
Yeah. So I think it's a very, very good question, and I think we are in Bangalore, which
This
is
not the real world.
It's a bubble of a bubble of a bubble, and I am Bangalore and product council. So digital doesn't mean mobile phone or online.
Yeah.
Okay? Digital means there's a system of record which is trustworthy. Trust is very important, right? If I raise a complaint today, I know my complaint has been registered. Okay, I know who it has been assigned. The person who is assigned it knows it's been assigned to me. I know when it is done. Okay, so today only 15% of transactions. So we have more than 26 crore citizens who use our services in some way or other. Okay, only 5% of transactions are on mobile phone. Another 15-20% on the computer. Okay, the rest of them are either face to face in their channels they know. Please understand, if I was in Ropar on a hot May day last year, and I went to the urban local municipality, and I'm sitting at we have a WhatsApp chatbot you can pay through. Huh? You can say, my phone number is this. It'll present your bill. You can pay. Done. Okay. I'm standing there on the counter of this thing, and a mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law walk with a small daughter. Hot day, she's in this thing, and they're sweating and panting, and they paid the property. I asked that the daughter-in-law, and she was I spoke to her. I said, why don't you pay it online? She said, थोड़ी सब्जी खरीद ली, थोड़ा किसी से बात कर ली.
That's the basic human connection.
10 minute मेरा घर है यहाँ से. So I think some of those things we feel about, and that's where equity and inclusiveness is very important. Okay, because it is very easy as product managers saying everybody is like me, right? They use Ola and Uber. In a small town, commute is not a problem, right? And India is a country of small towns. 3,600 towns are less than 1 lakh, right? Where the average commute time is 10 minutes by walking. Right? So the point I'm making is, and other part of inclusion is, equity. What does it mean? If I'm marginalized, I may not want to show that I actually exist. Okay? And that's where intermediaries come into play. You talk about Samaj, Sarkar, Bazaar.
Right. Yeah.
So that's where, you can have intermediaries like social workers who can do the services on your behalf. So I think meeting people where they are, and giving them access through the channels they prefer is the important principles. But obviously, it's event-based architecture, irrepeatable data, registries, and all those things don't change.
So apart from the underlying technology, if I put on the hat of a product manager, because we are in a product management conference right now, you are still actually active in the corporate side of things as well. So what are the key differentiations, top 2 or 3 differentiations, if you see the product management for an impact sector versus for a corporate sector? What should be the takeaways for some of the product managers here?
We just had a 3-day long workshop with a team from Mozambique, Ministry of Health. Malaria is a big killer in Africa still. So we're designing and bed nets are the best way to save people till we do the vaccine this day. We're designing a micro planning, campaign management for delivering bed nets. I think what they were reviewing it here. So biggest difference between, I started my life as a product manager in financial sector. It was relatively easy. I would say very easy. Your target segment is defined very clearly. You are saying, I'm building a new credit card for premium segment. Your targets are clear. You want to grow revenue. These are various levers you can pull. This is your distribution cost, blah, blah, blah. I think the biggest thing in impact sector is you need to look at all the actors. okay? So I can't over-optimize for the citizen. If the person who's delivering service does not have the tool, okay, then what's the point?
Right.
If the administrator doesn't have the real-time visibility of, and this guy may not like it, so you have to optimize for the system's performance, not optimize for an actor, right? In an urban system, how do urban systems work better? They need to have better revenue collection. Citizens don't like it,
Yeah.
right? They need to have more transparency. Administrators don't like it, right? They need to have dignity of work for the municipal employees, right? For their work to happen better. So that's the
It's not just a technology or product management, it's a social change model actually.
You have to look at system level. You cannot look at one actor and optimize for that.
Right.
Okay. And sometimes there are conflicting incentives. So that's the biggest thing you're always trading off.
I remember there's a very famous paper that I think in 74 some of the UK scientists talked about. They gave the notion of a wicked problem. Like social problems are wicked problems.
It's a wicked
and
problem.
one of the 10 properties they talked about was that the solution of a wicked problem you do not know until you have solved it.
Absolutely.
How true is that?
It is very true, I'm telling you. And I thought, I'd done a startup, I'd run banks, I knew everything. I mean, I fell, first 2 years I didn't know I was coming or going, honestly.
So what
Because
got
you can't take a linear path in this, right?
I've been intrigued by your journey. What got you there? What was that motivational factor to join eGov Foundation?
We've all live in Bangalore, some of us somewhere else, and I think we always crib about why can't they fix it? You always say that, right?
It's they.
It's they. Who is they, right? And I was very curious, you know. I think so. So I think, and there was some sense of saying, can you not look at below the hood and what it is?
Right.
And I think, and we have a great ecosystem in Bangalore. You know, people like Nandan was inspirational in terms of they went from private sector to public sector and solved a huge problem.
So we need a new generation of crossover leaders,
Absolutely.
role models,
Absolutely.
who have been an exemplary corporate
Yeah.
leader and now they are making an impact at
Absolutely.
a social sector.
Absolutely. And I think it's so much fun. I mean, they are wicked problems.
So I have one last question and then we'll see if we have any questions from the audience. If anyone in the audience would like to be part of supporting or contributing with their bandwidth or time or effort or sweat, how can they do that?
I mean, we have a volunteering program. You can participate on an hourly basis. You can participate in something that interests you. We have projects which are kind of, you know, right now data is a big theme for us.
Okay.
Because we generate humongous amount of data, right? But we don't have data expertise in terms of what AI you can put on top of it, or how can we use to better the government's performance. So that's the short answer. I'm hoping, and that's the reason I came today. So
Well, let's hope so. Great, Viraj. So if you have any questions, I would like to open it for the audience. If we have none, okay, we have one.
So talking about the government systems and digital public goods, there is another segment of public government sector technology which is more closed loop, which the government uses to track its beneficiaries, wherein all the money is going. How do you see the difference between creating a digital public good and creating a closed loop system for government for monitor such programs? Secondly, we also see that all these systems exist in silos. For example, a similar ministry has 10 schemes, each of them will have their own systems, and none of them interact with each other. How do you solve for these kind of problems, considering there are limited capacities, human resource wise as well as financially, to spend on technology, which is not the priority for them as of now?
Yeah, it's a wicked problem, yes. But to answer your question, one is, I mean, we're obviously evangelizing a lot in terms of why would you want to build a monolithic product when you can use some of the digital infra and build stuff on top of it. So that's one. For example, over the last 5 years, what we've done is, after working with a couple of states ourselves, we went to the national government and say, why don't we create national standards, national specs, and an instance of a platform which other states can use rather than trying to build their own systems. So, and that's a national urban digital mission. So that's one way of institutionalizing, okay? On the silos, that's how governments are built, okay? So that again means a policy change. So 3 years ago, every state will go and build their own platform. They'll either do an RFP, or they'll do RFPs after RFPs, nothing will happen for years, okay? And the public money gets spent and nothing happens at the end of it, right? So a lot of policy changes needed to change, to kind of change the siloed thing. But what platforms do is, once the policy change comes, they can quickly deploy it. because they, by nature, they have trusted registries, they have common services and data exchange layers, right? So you keep waiting. This is not a problem you can solve in years. I always say it's a multi-decadal journey. I've been here for 7 years, and these are wicked problems. There's no simple answer to it, but yeah. Please.
Can we have, okay.
Viraj, I've been looking forward to hearing from you for this session. My question is, this is great and we're doing a lot of work in India around EG. My question is, how do you, or what is your model working with other companies that have a lot of passion towards work, but they are not open source, they are for profit for right reasons. I mean, not maybe right reasons, but for practical reasons.
Right reasons.
Sure. So, you talked about platform and you are inviting, and I see a lot of similar work happening with Step and also ONDC, where there is a lot of network platform level work happening, and they are inviting everybody to come in. But there are some motivational, like you mentioned in your session. So how do you approach this? How do you plan to kind of bring them onto your platform?
So I think our approach is very, I always say, we have to, despite being an open source platform, when you talk to markets, you have to operate like an OEM, right? Because they want underwriting. If you are a, revenue lead in a big software company, you're not going to just do open source without any underwriting on the platform performance, without having resources to get your capacities up, and also market creation. So we do all three. So we work with governments who say, use this in your RFPs, put this as a OEM, right? Then we work, whoever they select. I mean, obviously we have about 100 odd partners right now, from PwC to smaller players. We do a lot of trainings, a lot of documentation. Today we are counting, I think we have more than 1,000 open documents. They are all open. The knowledge is also open. So unless you build a resource stack in parallel to the open source stack. So today almost 30-35% of our investment goes into building that capability to actually encourage market to participate. So that's a very important part of the strategy.
Thank you.
I think we'll probably have time for one last question, I guess.
So, great talk, thank you. My question is, when we talk about the impact space, there is so much to be done. So what's your philosophy in terms of how you prioritize? What's going to be the next problem that your team is going to work on solving?
So I think we always look at two things. One is what is the societal scale of the problem? Is it a big enough problem to solve, right? So scale is very central to our professors in our board, and that's the first question we ask ourselves. Is it a scale problem? Second question is there scarcity? So one of the things we keep, because it's very tempting to keep building,
right?
Okay, and that's a typical product manager. You say, let's build this also. So for example, we say after V1 we'll not build. Okay, let's say this malaria thing we're building in Africa. It's a real scarcity because every donor comes in, they fund polio, somebody funds tetanus, somebody funds malaria, and they're building their siloed problem, right? So we think it's a problem worth solving. So two things: scarcity and the scale. What is the human impact of it? So anything which is a small problem, which doesn't have scale, like billions of people being impacted, we kind of say, because we are you should understand, this is a very high risk capital, what people are giving us, right? Because this should only take bets which are big bets and bold bets. So that's how we look at it. I hope you have answered your question.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think we are almost on time. So with that, I would like to give a big round of applause and thank you, Viraj, for it's been wonderful talking to you. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
We wish you all the best and hope we have more sign-ups as volunteers.
Absolutely.
So we thank both of you for this wonderful discussion, and I request Professor Sadgopan to honor our discussants.
The real reason I'm here is because Professor Sadgopan ordered me to come here.
Yes, you are kind. This is what my students taught me. If you can, like Viraj, go and do it. If you can't, like me, they end up teaching. So that is what
Thank you, sir.
you
Thank you, sir.
guys do it.
Thank you.
Yes. Please come. So you did all the firing, right? Fireside chat. Come. Oh, you want
Oh,
to?
yes,
Yes,
Okay.
of course.
yes.
Yeah, photographers have their own ways of life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Viraj.